Hello. So this is my first coaching session with the amazing Kevin Brown of Friction Labs Climbing Chalk. And Kevin, please just introduce yourself so the people can see what a badass you are and why I'm reaching out to you for help to make this business as good as possible.
Well, I appreciate the intro. Badass might be too complimentary. Geez, about 10 years ago, two of my buddies and I, we started a climbing gym. It was like the first time that I scratched my entrepreneurial itch, and I knew that I wanted more. So I had a pretty successful career. I ran sales, marketing, and customer support for a software company. I came home and told my wife that I'm quitting my nice paying job that gave me unlimited vacation because I had to do this myself. She gave me a dirty look, but was pretty supportive. That's not true. She was really supportive. I like to joke a little bit about her. Yeah, 6 years later, we've redefined the categories of chalk. We're the first and only premium chalk company. Our products are sold in over 500 doors in the US, 27 countries around the world. We sell direct through our website. We sell on Amazon. We sell wholesale. We sell through international distributors. Any which way you can sell a product, we're doing it right now. We've started in climbing. That's where we've really made our mark. And now with COVID, and the concern about spreading the disease and all that sort of stuff. Now community chalk buckets in places like gymnastics and CrossFit and functional fitness and ninja and all those places. Now everyone's waking up to, man, we need a better solution for our chalk. So prior to this, people thought about chalk about as much as they thought about toilet paper if you were a gym owner, because they usually bought them at the same time. So it's been a real challenge, and it's also been really exciting to sort of elevate their chalk game and see how we can really help them.
With where we are at currently, I am just starting this business. We're 2 months in. We are riding the high certainly in a honeymoon phase. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs that are starting out and things are going well, things are exciting? What should I be doing right now to make sure they stay exciting and I avoid traps that so often are fallen into by entrepreneurs?
Well, I think the best analogy is a plane taking off. You know how you're sitting in a plane and you hear the engines rev up. That's sort of the way that we all think about our businesses, and we get all excited and we can't stop talking about it and thinking about it. The engines are revving and revving and revving. And then we take our first steps. You know, you file for your LLC, you do a couple of those things. The plane's starting to go down the runway. And there's a couple of points where the plane feels like it's going really fast and you think that you're a real business. You're not. You've created a very expensive hobby for yourself. And you know, when that plane starts to first take off, that's when you get your first sale and you actually have a little bit of revenue coming in. And right when you think you're doing all right, when the plane hits a whole bunch of turbulence, that's what separates the people who pack up and decide that this isn't for them and they're going to go and get a job versus the people who figure out how to fly through all that turbulent air. And the one guarantee you will have is that you will never have smooth sailing for very long. And if you do, you're either stagnant or your business is dying. Anyone, even the big guys, they all hit their turbulence. So you got to really enjoy the bumpy ride.
How do you, from a mindset perspective, what are your recommendations to enjoy the bumpy ride? We've had these conversations before, and I know you talked about being just ultimately committed. It needs to be business that you really believe in, truly deep in your heart, that you're completely committed to it, because that'll drive you. But what other kind of mindset tricks do you use to help push yourself forward in tough times, turbulent times?
I think one of the best books any entrepreneur can read is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and adopt a stoic philosophy about running your business. Being able to quickly disseminate what you can and what you can't control, accepting the things that you can't and focusing on the things you can will try and keep you out of those emotional states and keep you in a productive state. you can waste hours and hours and hours. And I think one of the hardest things that people who go from the hourly or job mentality to entrepreneur business owners is it doesn't matter how many hours you work when you're an entrepreneur. It only matters what you accomplish. No one's going to give you a pat on the back for working 80 or 100 hours in a week. And if that's your strategy, you're going to burn out because no one can sustain that sort of thing. So you got to be really clear about why you're doing this, what you're trying to accomplish. If you have a partner in your life, you got to make sure that you are so clear about why this is important and why, because it's going to impact them. You know, if you've got a partner and a family, it's going to bleed all over all of that stuff. And you know, as you have the ups and downs, they also have to witness those ups and downs, which cause them to have ups and downs. And if you've got kids, if you come home with your ups and downs, you know, they're going to experience your downs and then mirror that right back to you. And then then things get really exciting.
This coaching session is going to go a lot different because I'm really valuing this and where I'm at too. I think there's specific things I want to ask you about my business, but the big picture stuff is so valuable to hear from me. And then I also see this for others. What do you wish? I would love to be where you are in 10 years. And I think you're very successful with your business and very happy in your business and impacting the world in a really positive way. What do you wish you would have figured out earlier now that you're 10 years in? What do you wish you could, if you could go back and tell yourself, besides what you've already told, what would you tell yourself at the start of this journey?
So today's June 24th. Is that right? 2020? Okay. You had asked this question of me in February. I would have almost kind of agreed with you that things were going well. The pandemic threw, man, a wrench in the works. It's like we're on a really good looking train. Things were moving well, and the tracks just stopped, and we had to lay totally new tracks. And totally new tracks. We had to rebuild our train. We kind of had to turn it into a plane. The transition was crazy. So what do I wish I would have learned? You know, from the beginning, we've always had a really big focus on team and developing our team and transparency in our team. So every week we have a pipeline meeting where we go through everything, the cash in the bank, where the money's going, how the money's coming in, how that's working, so that we had absolute transparency. Because, you know, I don't really think of people working for me. I work with people, and as much as I can extend them an opportunity, they extend me their skills to build this opportunity. And it's my job to help improve their skills, to help keep them engaged and motivated. And when someone's not, it's my job to have the difficult conversation of saying, it feels like something's changed. We should figure out a way that you can be set up for success, because it doesn't look like our path is going well together. There's aspects of my business that I really ignored isn't the right word, but I just didn't pay as much attention. I had this story that that's not that big of a problem. I'm going to go focus on this problem, and you get to focus on that problem because you're empowered to do that. It sounds good, and it is true. And when you're a business owner, you got to know all the problems. You know, it's not that different from being a homeowner, right? My wife and I have a sort of division of responsibilities when it comes to the house. And you know, if there's a leaky pipe in the basement and that's supposed to be my responsibility and my wife sees it, she doesn't just get to say, hey, there's a leaky pipe in the basement. Like, she has to like help with that, right? Everyone needs to be looking at all aspects of the business and communicating not just the good stuff, but really, you know, celebrating the opportunities of the stuff that's perceived as bad. And you know, we've had a pretty good run, and the reality is that we covered up some real issues with some vanity metrics, and we didn't tackle some harder problems that are now creating a lot of they're creating like a lot of urgency with these issues, and it's distracting from the things that I personally want to work on. and they're also really important for the business. So, when you're a homeowner, you got to do it all. Something starts falling apart, you got to put it back together. Something in your business starts falling apart, you got to do the hard work of figuring out, even when it's an uncomfortable thing to figure out.
And look at the maintenance as building for your future, right? And building that strong foundation too. So then, like you talked about, you literally could be doing other things right now if you would have done things differently previously.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you adjust to that on the fly then? How do you now rectify that and make it so that is the way for the future?
It starts with a conversation with my family that things have changed in the business, and I have a lot more responsibilities, and that's going to take a lot of time. So then we figure out how that happens without destroying our family unit, or dumping all of my non-work responsibilities onto my wife or anything like that. So it starts there, and then it starts internally at the business with reshuffling priorities, being okay with stopping certain initiatives that just aren't that important. They were a bit of a luxury, and making sure that everyone's really focusing on the right things. To give you a really specific example, one of the things that I've always really been excited about is new product development and the research and development of trying to find what's going to be our next big thing. Well, that has to stop right now, because while it's important, it's not urgent. And if neglected or treated the wrong way, then some other problem could, railroad us, and I may never get the opportunity to work on that down the road. So having the discipline, I guess, to accept, okay, this is a fun thing that I really enjoy. That's on pause for now. This other thing that I don't know about, now I'm going to replace the time with that other fun thing. I'm going to replace it learning how to do this and figuring out the right way that we proceed. And that sets us up for the long haul ahead.
In the email I sent you asking you for this coaching session, I talked about one of my biggest concerns right now is I'm just all in on this business. I am so excited about this business. I know it's going to work. I see the potential. That part's all there. I have the right people to do it with, and this network of people even beyond them that I know can and push it forward even more. And in my head, and this is something I've worked on, is mindset stuff. Like I see this happening. I visualize this, and I know it's going to happen. What I'm not doing a good job on is balancing work life and family life. So you wrote this in the email, but can you talk about how you do that? Being so busy, even asking your family for more time. My former students are busy with life. They're busy with college. They're busy with jobs, often multiple jobs. How do you, being so busy, prioritize family and prioritize your business at the same time? What kind of things do you do to fill your own cup, all those things?
So I go back to the Stephen Covey book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the big takeaway for me in that book is you have these different roles, you have these different jobs in life, and all of them are important. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a dog dad, I'm a friend, I am a neighbor, I'm a rock climber, I'm a business owner, I'm an employer. It goes on and on. And I personally have a little notebook that I take with me pretty much everywhere I go. And in the front of it, every time I open up a new book, I put all of those titles, all those roles. And then I put what are the activities that I'm going to do this month to make sure that I'm making headway and progress on it. And I hold myself accountable. And the last day of the month, I got a little meeting with myself. It's a half-day meeting every day, the last day of the month, to review and reflect on the month that I just finished. What am I proud of? What didn't I get done? What role was most neglected? What role was most obsessed about? And then I make the plan for the next month. And and I kind of even do that on a weekly basis, every Friday afternoon before I go home. I think it's really important that I look at my roles as like a hat. I don't really wear hats, but I think of it as like I'm putting on a symbolic hat when I do something. And when I come home from work, being at the office most of the day, I take off my work hat. I leave my work in the car. I even just like do a little breathing, and then I go into the house. And it's I'm not great at this. Like, there's times where stuff comes home, and especially lately, I feel like I've been in a very reactive mode because we're getting challenges and questions that we've never really had about the business, and I don't have answers. But it's about deciding that in this moment I am wholeheartedly in this role, and I know me. If I decide that I'm going to do this, I can do it at least pretty all right. And if I try and do two or three things at one time, I don't do any of them very well, and I get disappointed in the results of any of it. And I think the worst thing that could ever happen would be if I got hit by a bus today, and the only thing my kids could say at my funeral was, "Daddy worked really hard." That would make me feel like a full-on schmuck and failure. So there's a lot of false urgency with work. It's urgent, it's important, there's money on the line, all those sorts of things. You can come up with every damn excuse out there. There's no more important role that I have than being a dad and a husband. And there's a pecking order to those roles, and trying to be mindful of that. I think it takes a daily practice. I think it takes a daily reflection. I think it takes real effort, especially when your kids driving you nuts, or you feel like things aren't necessarily fair with your spouse or partner or anything like that. Like it takes real effort, and not even just in home life, but even in the business. Between people that work on our team, my business partner, stuff like that. Like, it takes a lot of effort to have communication, and I think there can sometimes be a thought that we don't have time for this. Let's get to the important work. And I think after doing this for 7 years, what's the important work? Man, it's just it's so much different than what I thought it was when I first started the business.
Does having this mentality and having your hats and being home when you're home and being at work while you're at work, has that made you more efficient with your time? Can you give an example kind of how that works? Like, I feel like with this too, I've compartmentalized time, and now am so much more efficient with that time, not where I need to be, but currently so much more efficient with the time, and prioritizing things based on what I feel is most important at the time. Talk about that a little bit.
For me, it really comes down to schedule. I'm one of those obnoxious morning people who gets up before the sun. Fortunately, my wife and kids like to sleep in, so I take the opportunity to go to bed early. Try and put our kids to bed as often as I can, and then I start my day really early, so I can knock out most of the selfish me stuff, work stuff, things that like just aren't of interest to the rest of my family. I can get a lot of that stuff done before they even wake up. And in a normal world, then we'd have breakfast, and I'd take our kids to, I'd take my daughter to daycare. My wife would take our son to school. In pandemic land, that whole schedule got a little bit messed up, and like the separation of everything just kind of everything got thrown against the wall, and had to be like rethought out. And I don't know that we figured it all out, but we're making a little bit of progress on it. And then it's just when I'm at work, it's work time. And for me, I can do things really well in like a 90-minute sprint, and I can go really deep and hard on something for 90 minutes, and then I need a physical break. So whether that's a short workout and do some kettlebell swings, or I go for a walk, or I take my dog for a walk, or if I'm at home, try and play with my kids for a little bit, and then I go back into it for another 90-minute session. And for me, that's how I try and work it. And like I said, if this conversation was in February, I would be able to give you this is how it goes, and this is the time that I leave, and this is my morning routine. And And now all that's changed. So it's been kind of a humbling learning experience, and being okay with you know keep giving everything that needs to be important its due time.
I'm a fan of Tim Ferriss, and I know you are as well. And he's very routine oriented and also kind of process and documenting oriented. And that's something that's such a weakness for me personally. I have a lot of strengths, but that is a glaring weakness. So I want to learn from you as far as you talked about. You do a monthly reflection, and it sounds like just a little notebook.
Mhm.
You do even sounds like a weekly reflection where you're actually scheduling out this time to be doing this, correct? What other kind of things are you doing to do that? I know you're a voracious reader and learn from books. When do you find time to do that? How do you then make sure you retain the information in those books?
So my process is, I wake up, I do a little meditation, I exercise, I read, and then I take my dog for a walk. And whatever I read, that fuels what I think about on the walk. I don't jump into email first thing in the morning. I've just taken over our social media, so I try not to look at social media, but I have to see if anything popped up overnight. We do get trolled and things like that, so I have to be cognizant of time zones and things like that. And then from there, I like my day, like I think my day like kind of formally starts. My work day starts. Like all of my me stuff is pretty much done. If I get a workout in every day, I feel like I'm moving forward in the health goals I have. If I'm reading a little bit every day, I feel like I'm moving forward on the knowledge goals that I have. And then it's about not being selfish, because if I had my wherewithal, I'd work out another couple of times in the day, and I'd read more, because those are things that I enjoy. They give me energy, and I have to balance all that stuff out to make sure that everyone else has all the stuff that they need to get from me as well.
Goal setting is another weakness that you pointed out. Do you set formal goals, personal goals, business goals? Have your team set goals? What does that process look like for you?
Oh yeah, I'm a goal freak. I have there's a book called The One Thing. So we practice that in our company, and I practice it in my personal life. So in the company, every day, every person gets on a Slack channel called our Daily Huddle, and you list your one thing that, by hook or crook, the most important thing that you can get done that's going to move your quarterly initiatives forward. That's what you're doing. Then there's, the other few things that you're working on your day, if you're stuck on anything, and then, where you're working, just so everyone understands the best way to get a hold of you. And back in the day, people actually used to come into the office, so it wasn't everyone just working from home. In my personal life, my birthday is in like the middle of the year, at the end of May. So I kind of do 2 6-month sprints, one at the beginning of the year, and then one I kind of reflect on my birthday, and then I go forward. A year just seems to be too long to plan out. I have, these big, hairy, audacious goals of where I want to be in 10 and 15 years. And I kind of look at that as like my North Star. And it's not just, it's not just financial. It's everything about the life that I want to be living in 10 or 15 years. Not just for me, but for my whole family. And so that really like kind of sets the tone. But then I set, this is what I want to get accomplished in the next 6 months. I break it down into 2 quarters. This is what I should get done in 3 months, and this is what I should get done in the next 3 months. And then I take those 3 months, reverse engineer them into months, reverse engineer those into weeks, and then even reverse engineer that stuff into days. And that, when I'm making my daily plans, my weekly plans, when I do my weekly reflection, I'm going back to those big goals and making sure that, okay, I said I wanted to read this book or these books, or I said that I wanted to, I wanted to do more stretching because, mobility is limiting my athletic performance. or, my cardio is lacking, or, I want to try and eat like meatless meals, 3 or 4 times a week, whatever the goal is. And then I just make sure that I'm actually doing that. And I'll call myself out if I start to like drop into my old habits. And like, if I'm hungry, like it's not about, making a run to get this. It's like, okay, you embrace being hungry because this is part of the plan and we're going to eat at this time. And, if it's, I'm trying to be an athlete. So, let's make sure that we're living clean and going to bed at a reasonable time and getting real sleep and, living like an athlete, not like someone who aspires to be an athlete, but is munching on Cheetos and stuff like that. So, I think it's just about like saying, this is where I want to go, and then holding myself accountable to make sure I get there. Because no matter what, time's going to pass and I'm going to get somewhere. And if I just get somewhere, I'm probably going to be pretty frustrated because that's not exactly where I wanted to be. And when I end up where I wanted to be, it feels good. Like it's, and like you got to celebrate that stuff. I suck at celebrating. If I accomplish something, I'm like, all right, great, what's next? Instead of like, you know what, that was a lot of effort. That deserves a little bit more than what's next. That deserves a little bit of, let's sit back and be lazy for a half a day and just reflect on what's here.
One of my fears about this, and it's changing when I've had this vision with Mama Bird, where I have a clear vision of what I want to do and the importance of what I want to do and the time I'm willing to invest into that, the free time literally and money that I'm willing to invest in that. But one of my fears is like having every minute of my life scheduled. I see the benefit of that, and I see that could really move me forward. So I'm pushing towards that direction, but how do you balance that? Like you're literally scheduling time off and that you're down during that time and every moment of your life is scheduled. You seem like a natural in this. Have you ever had issues with that? And how do you rectify those, or other people that have gone from not being so scheduled to then being more scheduled? What advice would you give me to get to that point and the reasons why I need to, and then how to not feel overwhelmed by it and like every moment of my life is programmed?
I don't think it's sustainable to like dictate every minute of your day. I think it's healthy to have good routines. Working out at a certain time every day, just so that you stick to it. Different things like that. For me, I'm really good from the time I wake up until about 2 p.m. So I'm pretty structured and scheduled during those times, and then from 2 till about 5 or 6, it's less structured. I try and give myself more freedom because I know things are going to come up that I have to tend to, that whether I want to or not, they have to get done, and it's my responsibility. So I do it. And then I have a little bit more structure again, from 6 on. I do most of the cooking in the house. So, I make dinner, we eat dinner, we as a family, we clean up, and then there's some family time. And then it starts to get towards my bedtime routine where take a shower, drink some tea, stretch out, try and get the kids to stretch with me and stuff like that. And then, trying to convince them that it's time to go to bed. And, I'd say like 1 in 100 days, it goes pretty smooth. And then the other days, I grab them by the ankles and take them upstairs. But I think, there's a book by Daniel Pink called When, that talks about how, there's larks, there's like morning people, there's like really obnoxious morning people like me. Then there's like most people who kind of wake up in that like 6:30 to 7:30 range. And then there's owls that would prefer to sleep until 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And it's funny, I'm an obnoxious morning person, and what we found out during the pandemic is my wife is very much a night owl, and she can work until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Me, by about 9 o'clock, I'm yawning, and if I'm not in bed soon, I start to get kind of cranky because I'd rather wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and start working. She doesn't like that. So we've tried to use these complementary schedules to work out best for us. Some days it doesn't work out because I have to leave and first thing in the morning, and she'll work super late, and then kids wake her up in the morning, and she's kind of left being tired for the day. But I think really embracing what your productivity time is, and when you know you're productive, take advantage of that. Like that's where you get structure. That's where you hold yourself accountable. If you say you're a night owl, and that's when you feel like you have all your creative juices, but you're sitting there drinking a beer, watching Netflix, you're wasting your prime time. Like that's a mistake. You got to rethink that. You got to figure out, how do you be productive when you naturally feel productive? Embrace it, put some structure to it, and give yourself passes. Sometimes you're just not in it. So every once in a while, like it's okay to give yourself a day off, or a little bit of time off. I think the biggest thing that I learned is you have to schedule thinking time. And when you have scheduled thinking time, you have to be in a quiet place and actually think. And for me, that's where I think I've had some of the best ideas about not only my business, but life, parenting, being a better spouse, all those things. I sit there and I contemplate a big question, and I always find that the first three answers that come to mind, yeah, they're okay. I've had those thoughts before. The next three, yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just like a different shade of vanilla. It's about the same. And then like the three after that, that's when I really start to get these like very insightful thoughts. And that's really where I feel like I get a lot of growth and new direction. So just engaging in that discipline of having scheduled thinking time, and it's just non-negotiable because it's just too important.
Is that part of your meditation routine, or is that a completely separate time?
Totally separate. It's 2-3 times a week. And it just depends what's going on in the business. Sometimes it becomes like the most important thing that I can do. Right now, we're going through a lot of challenges. The person who ran our marketing and athlete team, they stepped down from the company. So I inherited all of that. And, what does it mean to be a representative of my company? What is it like? What are we looking for athletes? What did this person optimize for? How did this person make these choices? Are they really the choices that I think are best for the company? And then, I'm dealing with people on the other end of it. So I can't just send them an email and be like, hey, decided you don't really fit us. See you later. Like they're a professional athlete. So it's working, communicating with them, making sure they understand what the new direction for the business is. And all that stuff takes time. It takes thought. And you're like, anything that feels like, oh yeah, that'll be easy, but yeah, we'll just do that. Usually it's like, oh wait, actually there's a lot of hair on that. Like that's actually going to be kind of messy. Let me think about the best way to proceed in this. And I can't just do this tomorrow. Like actually I need to think more on this and then take action, next week and do that action the right way.
The last question I want to ask you here, and then we'll move on to my personal business and get your advice on that, is something we've already talked about, but to share with my students is, you are obviously a reader. You've mentioned several books. That's the way you consume content and information. And I feel like so often we feel that's the best way. For me personally, I'm okay with reading, but I do consume information. Podcast is a better one for me as far as the way I intake information. What are your recommendations on that? Does it matter what way you do things, or is just the learning the important part?
I mean, I think it just really depends what you're trying to accomplish in life. For me, like my personal mantra is, I'm in pursuit of perpetual improvement. And I've told that to some people. They're like, man, that's exhausting. Why would you sign up for that? But it's just the way that I'm wired. If I'm not a little bit better than I was yesterday, then I feel it's like a call to arms to get better. And it doesn't mean that I don't have downtime. I'm definitely not like, I'm not Tim Ferriss. I'm not any of these like people that are wildly amazing at any of these things. I'm just a normal guy trying to figure it out, just like I think like most everyone else. For me, reading is, I enjoy the practice of it. I enjoy just the feel of a book in my hand. I enjoy the chair that I like. I just, the whole ritual of it, I love it. The same way I love making a cup of espresso in the morning before I read. It's just, it makes me happy. And I think it's about knowing who you are and knowing how you learn and what you want to learn. A lot of the information I want to learn, I can't find on YouTube and I can't find in podcasts. And, I like to underline things and dog-ear pages. And, I've got my process for learning and reflecting and going back to, and in my basement, I have, I don't know, really long shelf of a bunch of books that's like 2 or 3 deep. I know where most of them are. You don't get to be on that shelf unless I've read the book from start to finish. Often, most of the books that I have, I've read 2, 3, 4 times, not right in a row. Just it's the old saying, the same person never, you never cross the same river twice. You're a different person, and the river's changed. It's the same thing with a book, and I'll read something, it won't resonate with me, or I'll gloss over it. And, at a different point in my life, I go back to it and it gives me a lot of insight. So for me, it's something that I found, to be totally candid, it's something I found late in life. I did not enjoy reading in college. It wasn't even until I really decided that I want to start my own business that's really when reading for me became a gift. But like in my company, we do book clubs, and what I've learned is no one likes to read as much as I do. They think of it as homework, and one of the guys recently surprised me and came back with a bunch of YouTube videos, and I was like, why are you watching YouTube videos? That's the way he learns. That's the way he likes to learn. And he's got a little bit of dyslexia, so he's a little challenged with reading. And so it's like, great. Hey, if that's the medium that works for you, all I care about is that we're just all getting better. So let's do that. Let's get you a subscription to Audible. Let's get you whatever you need. If you're willing to put in the work and the time, just embrace it. And luckily for all the books that I recommend to you or anyone else, you can get all that stuff as audiobooks. So you don't actually have to go through any of the process that I do. And you can do what works best for you.
All good stuff, Kevin. Okay, I'm going to stop this here, and then we're going to come back on the other side. Thank you.
Sure.